That's what I do. She says I'll be there in a minute. Yes.
Good. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and read this conflict of interest reminder that I think I'm supposed to do every time before we approve the agenda and minutes. In accordance with the bylaws adopted by the Environmental and Energy Stewardship Committee, subcommittee members shall not comment on the matter or if the outcome of the matter being considered is reasonably likely to have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact on the member or any matter involving a person with whom the member has a close familial business or other associational relationship. Is there any items of business on the agenda for which a member of the subcommittee is requesting a refusal today? Hearing none, is there an interest or motion in approving the agenda in the previous meeting's minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Public comment.
Well, I will share for Judy. She wanted me to make it clear that she would be with us today. However, she is over there standing guard over the stream banks and has her, now after yesterday her calling, now she's in her hard hat and her Ashbridge vest, thanks to Dane. So she is making sure they do not tear out root balls and everything out the stream bank. So she wanted me to make that very clear that she would be here with us.
She's wearing a life jacket right now.
She is fully decked out, standing there guard over those stream banks and making sure it is done correctly.
She's where she belongs.
And I've got a photo to prove it, because I was like, thank you.
Maybe that's where we should all be right now.
Can't get in.
Anybody else? Online or otherwise, or? Okay. Yeah, I guess I wonder if, I know Drew really wanted to be here for the C-based discussion. Is Andy ready to go? Is that okay with?
Oh, is Drew coming? He's just not here yet.
Yeah.
Should we text me?
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe we should.
Yeah, let's.
Who's that?
Oh, there it is.
Oh, okay,
Never mind.
great.
Moving ahead with Jeremiah's agenda item.
I'll wait 60 seconds. Let him get settled. We'll get going.
Sorry, Robert.
It's okay. No, you're ready. We got through the bureaucratic stuff, Drew. Now we're on to Jeremiah's about to start telling us about the C-based situation.
Oh, great, thank you. Okay, this is just an update about the C-PACE program. We've talked about this a handful of times over the years. There have been several attempts at the state level to enact C-PACE legislation. For a variety of reasons, it was imperfect, and so, you know, it got kicked back for some retooling, and finally, in July of last year, there was an official C-PACE legislation that was passed by both chambers, and so now there is officially a C-PACE, or authorization to participate in a C-PACE program statewide. So we're here to sort of give you an update on what passed, what it is, just you know, sort of more of an informational session and then a discussion. So, what is C-PACE? Commercial property assessed capital expenditure. You might also hear it referred to as commercial property assessed clean energy. That's essentially what it's for. It's again, a statewide program just recently enacted. They have chosen a state administrator, that was one of the hangups originally, was too much of the onus was on the local government, and most of the local governments kind of pushed back and said, we're really busy. This would be really difficult for us to administer ourselves. We very much like this to be a state administered program, so that was some feedback that was taken into account when they rewrote the legislation. Essentially, it's a voluntary financing program, commercial properties only. And the eligibility is that you gotta have a privately owned commercial, industrial, agricultural property. It can be multifamily, that is one potential option. And it's for clean energy projects, water conservation, energy efficiency, resiliency, so it could be anything from solar to HVAC replacement, windows, you name it. It does cover hard costs, soft costs, things of that nature. What happens essentially is that our responsibility is going to be to place an assessment on the property, right? Place a lien, if you will, on the property based on the financing. So what's different between C-PACE and like a traditional financing? So property owners pay for the cost of the building upgrades through a lien on their property tax bill. That's the major difference, right? Repayment obligations are transferred to the property itself. What that means is if a commercial property owner goes through the C-PACE program, gets a loan, does the thing, and they sell the property, that lien stays with the property regardless of the fact that the owner has moved on. The new owner then assumes that, right? And so that's a pretty big difference. The other major difference really is the terms. They tend to be much longer than a traditional like financing institution. Probably your bank's not going to give you a 20 or 30-year loan necessarily on an HVAC replacement or a big solar project. But this can draw those terms out to be much longer, which could, potentially lower costs a little bit or lower monthly payments a little bit. Or there are some challenges because there are some still really things that we don't know. They have not identified a capital provider for this program yet. Again, it's fairly new. It's another acronym I'm going to forget. There's too many acronyms in my life now, and they're all starting to jumble together. But the state agency that's administering the program, again, they're just getting rolling with this too. So there's still a lot of unknowns in terms of who's the capital provider, what are the loan terms, what are the interest rates. There are no active projects in North Carolina yet. So, we still have some things to learn in terms of how this is going to really officially roll out. We do have some examples of like templates for what the contracts might look like and things of that nature. But we still have some unknowns. And so there are challenges there.
The state agency, sorry to interrupt you,
No.
the state agency you mentioned earlier has to pick a bank as a financial program.
It is yes.
And we are required to follow that.
They will pick a traditional lending institution. It's almost always like a large scale lending institution, like a Bank of America or a Chase or a whoever, right? That's
Okay.
typically the backer is a large traditional financial institution, typically.
Okay.
And they have not, to my knowledge, identified who those financial provider might be for those state licenses.
That's interesting. I would have thought the landowner or building owner would pick whoever. Just
Being a state administered program,
Yeah.
I think they want to have it all wrapped up into one thing so that property owner can just apply and be good to go. They don't have to talk to the bank as well. That said,
Yeah.
it does require permission from their mortgage holder if they have a mortgage. So, right, if you're a property owner and you're still paying a mortgage on that property, if your current mortgage lender does not agree to sort of get further down the line in terms of the lien, like the C-PACE lien would go above theirs, then you're not going to get approved for the C-PACE lien because your mortgage lender has to agree to it as well.
And that's basically what blew up the rush towards C-PACE 5-10 years ago, right? Because it did like a national mortgage lending association sent out a letter that said, hey, like, if you do this, we're not gonna
You're
go drive a mortgage.
traditional, like if it's your bank and you owe them 25 years left on a long mortgage, they don't want to take a back seat. And so they get, yes. The only thing it does not go above is obviously property tax. Like, if you don't pay your property taxes, that always comes first, right? So it's a challenge. And again, that's why it's a requirement as a part of this application process that your mortgage lender send a letter saying we approve this. So we don't know yet whether or not that's gonna stop people from doing it or whatever. So, but it's again, something we need to think about. There is some, at least the potential for some redundancy for existing lending that we have currently. So Mountain BizWorks, for example, has a commercial lending program. So if a local commercial real estate owner wanted to do a clean energy project, there are mechanisms for them to do that already. And they're actually pretty good. Mountain BizWorks is a CDFI locally. They're a really good company. They offer up to $1 million at fairly low interest rates. So there would potentially be some redundancy. I did actually reach out to them to talk to them about this as well and get their thoughts on it. I think the way they view it is that CPACE would be for really large, like industrial customers versus they might deal with smaller commercial customers. That in itself might be a challenge. We don't have a ton of large industrial customers. I mean, I guess the GEs and the Pratt & Whitneys of the world might, but I don't know that capital access is a problem for those guys either. So, again, just want to sort of put it all on the table, pros and cons.
Hey, Jeremiah,
Yes.
is this different than the Green Bank that we talked
Oh, that's
about
a great
earlier?
question. I'll get to that. We'll get to the Green Bay thing later.
But this is something different. This isn't Green Bank.
No,
Okay.
not at all. That's almost entirely residential.
Okay.
Yeah, this would be strictly commercial, so.
Jeremiah, do we know if Mountain BizWorks is funding generally and or they're funding specifically for these new programs is in jeopardy?
It is.
Yeah, short answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the reasons, and one of the reasons that I did reach out to Mountain BizWorks and ask them about this specific program and what the uptake was, right? Like how many applications are you seeing? They didn't give me a lot of specifics, but they did say, well, we haven't really been super heavy on advertising yet because we're still in a bit of a wait and see mode. Which is a place that a lot of us are in right now. So I don't have any definitive answer. Jeopardy, potentially, but I don't know.
I assume it falls into the bucket of money was clawed back with them, so extra legally.
Yeah, nothing has been clawed back yet from their perspective, but again, I don't want to get into the, there is at least some potential for them to have, not have those funds in the future. This is just a sort of a layout of like, what is the process, right? What does it look like if someone were to go do this? The legislation requires that we would have to adopt a resolution, conduct a public hearing, go through that process. The resolution is pretty straightforward. It basically just says, hey, as a county, we're gonna participate. That would then enable any municipality that is within our jurisdiction to participate as well. Municipalities cannot do it on their own. The county has to do it for them. So we would have to adopt a resolution saying Buncombe County and its jurisdictions are okay with participating in this. EDPNC, that's the one I couldn't remember. So really, a lot of the actual work is on them, but at the same time, we would be responsible for recording that lien on the property. We would technically be able to be reimbursed. I think the max was like $500 to be reimbursed for the work that we would put in to do that. There is, and it specifically says this, like no exposure to financial or legal liability. I'm not going to chime in on that. I'm going to let lawyers chime in on that, whether or not that's fully accurate. But the state agency would review the project applications, collect admin, processing fees, submit documentation, et cetera. The capital lenders would be responsible for closing documents and billing and collection. That another part of the original legislation we didn't like was like, we don't want to be a billing and collection agency for this type of stuff. Like again, our tax offices we do enough. So we would want that responsibility against somebody else. So that was a good thing in the legislation that had changed. So just a little bit about the process. And again.
So one quick question there.
Yeah,
So
please.
For us as the county, then the main thing is the lien, recording the lien of that.
Mhm.
Okay, and is there anything I missed that would be our responsibility?
Really, it's not much of a lift. We would have to go through the process of, again, holding a public hearing, doing a resolution, et cetera, making it, eligible to be done in this jurisdiction. And then, yeah, if someone went through the process, reached out to the state agency, said, I want to do it, they handle essentially all the paperwork until it gets to the point where it's an approved thing, and it would come to us, and we would have to put that lien on the property. So, again, there is at least a modicum of reimbursement for the time we'd have to spend to do that. So, again, pretty straightforward process. This is basically just a graphic way of saying everything I've already said, but I want it to be pretty transparent for folks. So, any other questions so far?
Well, you mentioned legal, are you gonna get to that, because you made a point?
Yeah, right here.
Okay.
So, yeah, this is the part where we like to sort of, put it out there for discussion, get folks' feelings on it, and again, of course, ask our legal team what their thoughts on it, potential challenges, or, how they, I'm gonna let Larry talk about that. That's it.
It's not possible for businesses within Buckley County to participate or access these funds unless the county adopts this resolution.
That is correct. If you want to participate in CPACE, the county has to adopt a resolution saying that within this jurisdiction, we are allowing this program to take place, basically.
And that we will expend county resources to record the lien.
Yep, we'll agree to do it, basically. So if you're a commercial property owner and we don't do this, you do not have access to the program.
We don't think, the royal we, I guess, it's pretty low risk, I guess, is what I would say. It's, as you said, it's not a heavy lift. It's relatively low risk for the county. The only issues that I see are that, as Jeremiah brought up, no counties have done this yet. So there's really no rush to adopt this ordinance. We can actually kind of take a wait and see approach to see if other counties do it and see how they handle it, because you can pass the ordinance at any one of your meetings and have that ready to go. We just really don't know how this is going to work in practice. And the reality is it's taken a couple of years to get the legislation where it is. So I don't think that anybody's really identified any problems or hiccups that we could run into. So it's just a question of how on the forefront the Board of Commissioners wants to be with this.
When you say no one's done it, has there been some counties that adopted the resolution? Just
New
Hanover,
I think
yeah.
New Hanover's adopted the resolution, but I do not believe
No one's.
anything else has gone beyond that.
For all the reasons that Jeremiah pointed out with the agencies. Yeah.
Yeah, and it may be problems with people with potential applicants being allowed to do it with their mortgage company and all that kind of stuff. So
And I just want to say out loud, because I rarely get to say this, I want to thank Senator Michael Lee for doing this past. He actually ran this legislation. He's from New Hanover. So did we contact anybody in New Hanover?
I talked to him last week, actually. Yeah.
Like, what do they have specific plans or goals with this?
At this point, Wilmington is the one that's really planning on trying to actually roll it out. And so they have not really, again, this literally just happened. Right. So I want to say less than a month ago, they adopted their resolution. At this point, they're working on strategies to market it to the community and see what kind of uptake they can get. But they are also still kind of waiting for the state agency to sort of flush things out fully so that, again, they've got access to capital. They don't actually have that stuff like that. Right. So again, it's all really new, and between all the things that we've been going through the last many, many months, we just haven't had a lot of time to put into what this would look like for us, other than, hey, look, we finally got this through.
But it is interesting, for example, in the actual law, they mention preparing a toolkit, and they actually have done that. I looked at it, it's pretty, gives a lot of information, it's informative. And I think the other thing that's interesting to mention is that the lien follows the property, not the taxpayer. So, I mean, which is true of all liens, but it just, if anybody had a business and they tried to sell it, they're stuck with this. So I mean, it's not really a big decision for the county, but it is a big decision for anybody who wants to participate, because it will affect their ability to, and now that we're trying to have our businesses are rebuilding post a lien, that's just one more layer to add to their decision-making processes.
So we get that.
And just to make sure, does anybody have any questions about lien priority? Because that's kind of like legal speak, and I want to make sure that everybody kind of, if anybody has any questions about that. That's basically, how a person's, if you borrow money for your property, lien priority determines who gets paid first, should that property be sold. And I just want people to know that normally, statutorily, the government's property tax lien usually overrides everything, right? So the government gets paid taxes first. The next thing statutorily is special assessments. So usually when you see special assessments, and that's kind of how this lien would be treated as a special assessment, but if the city of Asheville is building sidewalks in a specific neighborhood, those neighborhoods could be assessed that priority lien, or installing a water line or things like that. But normally, lien priority is determined by who records it first in the Register of Deeds office, right? So the principal mortgage will be your first lien, then if you have an equity line, that would be a second. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that this lien would be priority and take precedent.
And that has been a challenge.
Right, which is why that no lender would possibly want to give up their priority.
And this requires them to do so. Right. So it's got challenges for sure.
Voluntarily.
Well, exactly.
I remember like 4 years ago, it was just me or was everybody on the commission, we were getting emails from a couple different people who wanted to use this like every month. They were just like, and that's dropped off. That dropped off entirely a while ago. I'll try to dig up some of that to find who that was. But I guess one of my instincts is like, we just wait and see, and we can adopt this one day once the state's kind of program and the bank is set up and all the lending details are set up. From a PR standpoint, like if we were to adopt it and someone in the public is interested, then there would at least those details would be there for them to investigate. As opposed to us doing it tomorrow, this don't exist.
And it sounds like in the meantime, that sounds like a good plan to me. In the meantime, Mountain Biz Works does have that program that people can utilize, well, depending on.
Today they can. Today they can. They have applicants, but I guess what they're concerned about is the long term.
Right.
But that program does exist and it's accessible to commercial properties today.
I think it's limited to economically disadvantaged areas though.
It is not. I asked that question. Yeah, it is any commercial, nonprofit, or even local government in Western North Carolina.
Jeremiah, this lien priority thing doesn't make sense to me. Is there any chance of getting that changed? The reason I say it doesn't make sense is the thing goes with the property. That with whoever this capital provider eventually will get paid regardless because the property's not going away, the owner is going away. So it really doesn't make sense that they would be bumping on top of somebody who's tied to the owner.
So that's statute though, right? Like the special, it's considered a special assessment.
What makes this weird is that the legislation is treating this as a special assessment. And normally if a municipality or a local government is assessing a special assessment, the local government doesn't have to ask permission from the primary lender if it's okay to assess the special assessment. The government assesses it and they get paid first. But essentially what this law is asking you to do is basically it's asking that you get permission from your primary lender to basically take behind the CPACE loan.
But the difference from say a sidewalk assessment is that this is a private entity providing the capital, not the state government.
Exactly.
So again, my question, I don't know what the politics were in Raleigh to set it up, unless they were just trying to make a lazy way to make use of existing legislation. But it just seems to me if that could be changed, this program might actually work a little bit better.
Right, no, you're right. And usually what would happen when somebody sells a property, there are like liens, they usually with the buyers wanting all those liens to be paid off before they purchase the property. So I would assume that if somebody has a CPACE lien on the property and they're selling it, part of that, the terms may be to pay off that entire lien through some of the closing.
So it
proceeds.
really wouldn't make a difference then.
Yeah, it may or may not, but once again, I think the rub in this is gonna be getting permission from whoever basically did your primary financing on your property. Because they're probably not gonna wanna take behind,
Oh.
a lien. So that I think would be the biggest challenge is getting, that to agree.
The bottom line is that the county doesn't have a lot of legal liability. We sign on to it, it's just a tool that can be in property owner's toolbox and they can access it if they want. I mean, that feels like a good thing to do. But
Yeah.
whether it's utilized or not.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think it is a tool in the toolbox. It's not a particularly heavy lift from us. I agree with, I think, Amy, that and frankly, part of your assessment that I personally like to kind of see this play out a little bit, and I'd like to understand a little more. But we have a resolution template that's ready to go at any time.
Yeah.
That, should we see some movement that is positive or progressive, we can simply pull the trigger and move forward. I don't think there's a rush to do so.
I'd say let's, is the EDNC?
EDPS.
Oh, see, now I'm messing it up.
I'm I'm acronymed out.
I got this.
So I think it's important that it's with EDNC, and for those that are not familiar, that's the Economic Development Partnership. It's a nonprofit state entity. It's like a companion to the Department of Commerce.
Yeah.
So the equivalent would be like Buncombe County and EDC locally, a similar type of relationship. And so the way I would see it being marketed and playing out would be as companies are looking to expand locally, they would meet with their EDP&C rep, which is just like a really normal process. And that rep offers, here's our toolkit. We've got our Rural Development Loan Guarantee Fund, we've got the JDIG, 1NC, here's all these products we have, here's CPACE. Is this a tool we want to take advantage of? And if we're seeing a lot of interest locally in those expansions, we would hear that directly from EDP&C, EDC, and all the other acronyms, saying, hey, we've got an expansion that can be dependent upon this project, this tool. So I think we'll have ways of actually hearing about whether or not there's interest.
Cool. So while we're on this, I'm curious, is there a program for public schools to be able to access clean energy? Because as we've been speaking with school representatives, the rising cost of energy is something that is driving up their yearly costs. And so if they were able to have solar battery storage and have that financed, that can maybe spread out those energy costs, which we expect to continue to rise as more investments are made in fossil fuel. Is there a program?
Sure, it seems like the obvious.
Well, we have installed solar on many schools, almost every city school, with the exception of Claxton and Hall Fletcher. Not as many county schools because they have 45, I think, and got maybe 15 or something like that. We have made a commitment to doing as many of those projects as possible. But we've taken on the responsibility of paying for those. It's not a program that, we've gone out and found as additional. So in terms of, are there existing federal resources or state resources? Not that I'm currently aware of. That doesn't mean that there won't be. It's difficult to know in this environment. Those types of programs would be created, but right now, that has fallen on us. And we've put a lot of time and a lot of money, frankly, into doing that work. Certainly you have a sustainability office that's willing to continue to do that type of work, but there's a lot of resources that are needed for it. But I'm not aware of any current programs outside of what we have done as a county. And we made some pretty significant commitments.
I had the same question just from remembering the last school capital fund commission meeting and how many of the asks were related specifically to outdated HVAC systems. Just wondering about that. Crosswalk and that would look like.
Yeah, I mean, there's a long list of deferred maintenance to replace all kinds of equipment in lots of our schools.
Yeah.
So, outside of school capital, that is the mechanism as far as I know.
And that's on us to finance. I don't know the details of the Mount Bismarck program, but it seems like we could use that, but I doubt that their kind of program or terms would be any better than our own ability to debt finance.
That's a good question. I am not currently familiar with what like interest rates we pay on debt issuance.
Yeah.
I know that their interest rates are below market. I do know that they do try to line up their repayment terms with the type of project. So for example, if you've got a solar project that's like a 12-year ROI, they'll try to line it up and have a 12-year payment, right? 12-year, repayment schedule. So
I'm sure the school capital commission
Yeah, I'll
can
find
that down.
I'll find out from Matt, because I think Mountain Bizworks was at 3.5, is that what I remember seeing up here?
9.
Something like that, so I'll
Yeah,
check.
it's a good interest rate.
We go out to debt every 2 years.
Yeah.
And so I'll check with them and see kind of what that interest rate is. Over the past few years, I think it was probably better than that 3.9, but now, of course, that is changing,
That's relying on the county's triple M bond.
yes.
So only superpower.
Yes.
But yeah, I'll
It is
find
important.
out and let y'all know, I can send a follow-up email.
Yeah, that, much more of a finance question in terms of debt issuance and interest rates, and so I wouldn't know that stuff off the top of my head. We got a whole department, they know all that stuff, they're good at it.
Okay. Anything else on CPACE from folks?
We'll put good tabs on everything.
Yeah.
And if there are updates or new projects or things of interest, we will continue to update you guys.
Thank you.
Oh. Michelle's here.
Hi.
Hi.
Should I say?
If you want
It's kind of awkward to
to.
sit on center seat. Oh, here, yeah,
That would
that's
be-
less awkward.
Yeah.
I did bring copies. I brought 10. I did expect some folks, so I maybe save committee members first, if that's okay. And I think it was submitted, it was circulated electronically. Yeah, I'll pull it up on the screen. Oh, perfect. Hi everyone, for those who don't know, my name is Michelle Myers. I work for the North Carolina Clean Energy Fund, the Green Bank, so thanks for the shout out. Just based on the last conversation, we are hiring a commercial lending officer. We also have 10 million in CGC capital and commercial and small industrial is part of that pipeline. That's statewide. So Mountain Bizworks, of course, has funding that's more directed to Western North Carolina. I just thought I'd throw that out there. So we're not strictly residential, but I'm the consumer lending program director, which means I am strictly residential, and some nonprofits. I'm here today to talk to you about the loan loss reserve that Buncombe County set aside for the Electrify Asheville Buncombe County program. That was $100,000 set aside in 2023 to enable upwards of $1 million in lending for residential electrification and energy efficiency upgrades. That program is humming along. Of course, like everything else in this county, it had a bit of a hiccup in its first year. So I will say the uptake has been not as rapid as we had hoped. This program was initially designed to complement the state rebates, the Homes in Here program, or Energy Saver NC, and that program has not yet launched in Buncombe County. I do think we'll see more applicants once that program launches, which is June 1st. So it's really timely to be here with you today. And what I'm here to talk about is applying some of the loan loss reserve and changing that to a different kind of credit enhancement and make it a fee payment. So actually it was your idea, Commissioner Sloan, that, how can we remove the 2.99%, basically a technical assistance fee and a loan loss reserve administration fee. It pays for our time to review each project, make sure that it's an Energy Star certified product, all electric, and just kind of work out the mechanics of doing the loan loss reserve. So this proposal does that for households between 80 and 150% of the area median income. That coincides with the partial rebate, the 50% rebate from the Energy Saver NC program. So people are receiving, $4,000 or $5,000 off their HVAC and energy efficiency project will need to come up with the remainder
in their home, and we believe that if we could pay the fee for them, our financing, which is done in partnership with Self-Help Credit Union, would be the best option for them. Right now, at the time we launched the loan loss reserve, Self-Help was not offering what they call actually their Energy Saver loan. And we created this loan loss reserve partially to enable lending in this, for these services, for the types of products and the things we wanted to see for electrification and energy efficiency. They are now offering their Energy Saver loan to members across the state, so that's great. And I appreciate Buncombe County's leadership in enabling them to take that step as well. And so basically, what we get for our loan loss reserve is a percentage point off the interest rate, and then you add a 2.99% fee, and the benefits are mitigated. So by enabling the loan loss reserve to be reapplied to the fee, there actually is a cost savings to the homeowner or the borrower when they take the loan. Does that all make sense?
Go over that again.
Okay. Okay, so in 2023, we said we want to launch an electrification program. We want every home and business in Buncombe County to switch out their HVAC, put in a high efficiency all electric HVAC system, to take advantage of that new technology, do a bunch of energy efficiency upgrades as well, right, hand in hand. Financing is often thought of as a tool to enable or to incentivize that behavior change. So the Green Bank came to the table and said, great, we will find a really nice financing option for the Electrify Asheville Buncombe program. And we'll do that by partnering with a local CDFI or credit union. And Self-Help Credit Union was that partner in the end. So they at the time were not offering financing for HVAC or energy efficiency. They kind of had this loan product design kind of going in California, wasn't available on this coast or in the Southeast. So with the loan loss reserve, we brought them to the table and we were able to make loans for those products and services. For the work of negotiating that with them, holding the loan loss reserve, and then also reviewing each project because they don't have their loan officers are not HVAC specialists, right? They didn't know what comes where initially. They're getting there. The North Carolina Clean Energy Fund charges a 2.99% fee. Now that Self-Help Credit Union is offering their energy, so a year later, here we are, a year and a half later, Self-Help Credit Union is offering their Energy Saver loan statewide. So great, we're excited that we spurred this movement in the market. And the terms in Buncombe County are a little bit better, 1 percentage point better because of that loan loss reserve. But we also apply a 2.99% fee. So the benefit, the financial benefit to the borrower is kind of, it's not there because of the fee. So by now using the loan loss reserve up to $30,000 to pay the North Carolina Clean Energy Fund's fee, we can pass that savings on to the borrower. And if you look at the handout, and I do have a couple extra copies if anybody didn't have one.
So if you participate in the Asheville Electrify Asheville, which I participated in, so I don't know why I can't say it, but I couldn't be there. But you have to be of an AMI of 150%. Otherwise, you don't qualify for this, what you're discussing right now? Or is that
We're just talking about paying the fees for people that are income qualified.
But you have to be income qualified in order to participate in the program, the
No.
reduction program? No, that's something different?
No.
Because I'm wondering why.
If you are
I
income
participated.
qualified, this option would pay the fee for you.
Gotcha.
You don't have to be income qualified just to participate in general.
Yeah, right. I mean, to get a loan, you have to be income qualified, right? So
That's what I'm getting at.
yeah,
Yes.
you do
Okay.
have to have money to pay your loan. We don't want to put anyone in a situation where they're overextended. So it's called a debt to income ratio, and we have to 50% positive debt to
That's
income
not what I
ratio.
mean. I
Okay.
mean, if you make more than 105,000 per household, you do not qualify for this reduction.
You do not qualify for the Energy Saver NC program, the Home Secure Rebate, which is a greenhouse gas reduction fund that's being rolled out by the State Energy Office. So that's a rebate program that is not administered by
That's
the
not
Green
what
Bank, but the timing of this will coincide when that rebate is finally available in Buncombe County. So The cutoff for that, for the partial rebate, is 150% of area median income, and the cutoff for us paying our fees is 150% of area median income. So folks who are now coming to our loan, which honestly, people that have 200% of area median income, they're less likely to need financing. And I think that's what we're seeing also in the current campaign, the Electrify campaign. Because not a lot of people have come for our loan product because a lot of those folks are voluntary early adopters, maybe have a higher income or very intentional about when they're planning to retire their HVAC in order to electrify. So this will be a different demographic that we're able to reach now. And I think the marketing for that campaign, there should be some additional, I think we're gonna put an email in the, maybe out with the county to say this Homes in Here rebate is now available, and that might get another few extra clicks through to sign up for the program. And having a really nice affordable loan option to roll out in concert with those rebates is the intention here. And if you look, so you can see with this graph that I put right here, just kind of how the impact this will have on our lending. We can still do over, this says if we do 100 projects, which is $1 million in lending with an average project size of $10,000, which is about right if they're getting half of it paid by a rebate program. And then, how much the fee would be. And then, so how this, we would still have $40,000 remaining in the loan loss reserve for non-subsidized lending, or for fees that people that might want the loan but still want to pay the fees, or for something else you might want to do. The $20,000 right now is just held by self-help credit unions to enable them to offer that credit rate, but it's still intact. It's like on reserve there. And if you turn the page over, sorry, I tried really hard to get this on one page, which would not fit. You can see the balances at self-help credit unions. So the $20,589.56 is the loan loss reserve that is allocated for self-help credit union to enable them to offer that loan at 1 percentage point lower. And then we have this other account at self-help credit union, which is not activated really. It's just a reserve, and it's collecting interest slowly. But that we would be pulling potentially from that other account. You guys gave $100,000 to put into these accounts. We only draw off of them for the loan loss reserve that there are charge-offs, which means that someone has defaulted on their loan, and it's anticipated that about 3% of loans will have charge-offs. So you enable quite a bit of lending through this $100,000. And we haven't had any charge-offs yet. So the whole loan loss reserve is intact. So the money's there. Let's pay the fees, make it a better loan product as the Homes in Here rebate is rolling out to lower income households.
Well, thank you. What do you need us to do, or feedback, or what do you need from us?
Thoughts?
Okay.
We're not anticipating a vote.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we don't need a vote, we don't need
Yeah.
anything like that. Just general thoughts, and if there is a consensus on whether or not making this type of adjustment would be something you guys would support. The way the contract is currently structured, we likely would have to go back and do a short amendment to it to enable this, but that's not a difficult thing for us to do. But really, it's just present this as an option, get your feedback on it, and then if the consensus is to move forward, we will.
So I just have a few questions for clarification. I'm just reading this now, so I did not look at this in advance. So what we understand, okay, we had 100,000 and that was to be able to help us do up to $1 million or so, right? So what have you. So if we are what?
It's over $1 million. And then there's a spreadsheet that goes like first year, second year, third year, and then it kind of gets recycled. There's a lot of ones.
So if we start using this to help with the fees, how is that going to impact the ability of, using it up to the max that we had intended to be able to be utilized for? What's the impact on that?
Sure. So it will only draw down as quickly as adopted, right? So as you see in the bottom line here, with 100 projects, we will then spend, $29,900. So that would still mean that there is $40,000 after those 100 projects have been made, and you've paid the fees, there's still $40,000 in the loan loss reserve. And if there's no charge-offs, which as we service people with lower income, you'll expect more charge-offs. But, again, we're only really depleting the remaining fund with charge-offs, so as loans default. And to be clear, we've done 3 loans so far. So if we did 100 loans, we would be very happy because we've actually made really good use of this funding.
And so is the idea behind this that you think that will expedite, be able to help more people, and that at some point we won't really need as much funding in here and won't need to do as many projects? Is that part of your thought process? Or?
Yes, I think so. What this loan loss reserve enabled was to get a credit union to come to the table to offer green lending. And we did that. And now they're offering green lending across the state. And as we're deploying, so as the Green Bank is deploying its own capital and is raising private capital, we're going to continue to do green lending. So I think it's a really good time to use the funds as they were intended. They're not doing any service to anyone if they're just sitting here. And I think, again, the interest, the benefit of the loan loss reserve is 1 percentage point, and if you add a 2.99% fee on that, there's really not a big advantage for the borrower in Buncombe County. And I think the point of you guys allocating these funds was to provide a low-cost financing option for these projects. So I think this is use as intended and just slightly different structure. And we do have greenhouse gas reduction funds and we have money set aside for consumer lending there. So if this has a massive uptake and it goes away, you'll still have a financing option. But the terms of self-help are quite nice. And we're going to try to get something competitive. We haven't quite worked out the structure of that yet, but it won't mean that there's no green financing anymore because we have done this kind of stimulation to the market. Self-help credit union is still there. They're still offering the loan. And this just makes the terms competitive.
And one of the theories kind of behind loan loss reserves generally at a global view is that it's recycled forever, or in theory can be.
Yes.
Right, so that's part of it. You create it in the beginning, you can adjust it along the way, but the intent is for it to never go away.
Well, that's what I'm having a hard time understanding.
If we're paying the fees, it's going
If
away.
we're paying the fees, it's going away.
Yes,
Yes, it is no longer a loan loss reserve. It's a different kind of credit enhancement.
yes.
So,
That's what.
and that's at 100 projects and $1 million, you will have spent $30,000, which means there's still $70,000 being recycled. The reason we get down to 40 is because at 1 million projects, the rest of the reserve is allocated, or, the self-help credit union needs to hold that money in reserve as the loan loss reserve is intended to function to make themselves whole for the charge-offs. So they'll hold the money, but then it actually is not depleted unless there's a default on the loan. So the funds are still intact, they're just allocated. Because you've done a certain amount of lending. I'm only confusing things for, but basically the money is allocated but not spent until there's a charge-off. Does that make sense? So there'll be $40,000 at the bottom of this spreadsheet, 100 projects, $1 million. There'll be $40,000 completely unused. And then the rest, the $30,000 will be paid for fees, but then there's also $30,000 in reserve which is the loan loss reserve is allocated for the $1 million in lending that has happened. Does that, there's Med?
So instead of $100,000, you have 70.
Yeah, I think that's, I'm just trying to boil it down to the simplest things.
Yeah.
There's no payback on the fee. Right, there's payback on the loan, so that revolves.
The 70 revolves.
Correct.
Right, correct.
In perpetuity.
Instead of,
Yes.
instead of the 100.
Yes.
Basically, the suggestion
Well,
is.
until there's a
take 30 of the 100.
Yes, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Which is the point.
Which is the point.
Instead of $100,000 loan loss reserve, you have a $70,000 loan loss reserve.
Yeah.
You've used $30,000 of it to pay fees to make it more accessible.
Yeah. If I'm making it more accessible, we expect it to be utilized at a much greater rate.
That is the-
I mean, it'd be nice if the fees didn't fall on us to have to cover, but we're reducing the vendor's cost by 3%. To me, that's a great thing.
Yes.
Right? And it's gonna increase participation, we have the ability to save poor people money. We should do it.
I think that hopefully the rebate program too, combined with it, will
That is.
increase adoption too.
That is the, that we're finally starting to see these good programs take place.
Yeah.
It's been a long time coming for the rebate programs to all move. So I know I'm preaching to the choir on that
Since there were emails.
So you've done 3 so far, you're talking about 100, but as the program goes on, you would expect there would be more than 100 over time, correct? Or is there a limit to?
100 is not the cap, the 100 is just the cap for what we're enabling with $30,000 in fee buyout.
Oh, okay, after 100, this comes back to discuss again about the fees.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
They need more loan loss reserve, or we could discuss about not paying the fee anymore.
Okay,
Well, we still have loan loss reserve, we just will no longer be subsidizing the fee. Yep. Right, so after, if we got more than 100 applications of below 150% AMI, we could also direct those people to maybe, a different loan product if that was the best fit for them. So I would love to have 100 loans and help 100 people, that are qualified for the rebates to actually take advantage of those rebates by providing them a low cost way to pay the remaining project costs. And so I think that is really in line with what you guys had envisioned initially, and I think this is a good mechanism for doing that.
It might be helpful to describe out loud an example of that, so it could be someone who's wants to do a large HVAC improvement to their home.
Sure.
And they need to cover electrician's costs and that sort of labor costs, and that's the kind of thing they can come to you to get a loan for, and meanwhile the rebates are.
So the way it works is someone will go on the Energy Saver NC website, they will sign up, they will be approved for a rebate. They'll have a list of contractors that will be, that are eligible to do the work for them. And then the contractors are able to bill the implementer of the Energy Saver NC program 50% of that project cost. And they're gonna look at the homeowner, they're gonna say, great, this is and I think it's up to $4,000 or $5,000. So they're gonna say, if you need a $12,000 HVAC system, we can give you $5,000 towards that. How are you gonna pay for the $7,000? And what we want people in Buncombe County to hear is there's a really great loan option that's low cost to you through a local, just from self-help, which is, as trusted as you can get, right? And by the way, they use, the way they approve loans is very accessible, so people with limited credit are likely to get approved.
and how do people find out about this program?
How do people, so we have a partner that's marketing the Electrify Asheville Buncombe. So this is all part of the Electrify Asheville Buncombe campaign that has had, a presence at farmers markets. They've been doing some church tours. They've been talking to people at the Sierra Club to try to promote electrification generally. And then they talk about our financing. And I think now that we're gonna say, by the way, these rebates are available, we're gonna see a much more rapid uptick. And so I think the county is gonna put something out in their weekly, monthly newsletter, something like that, to say, rebates are available, wonderful. And by the way, there's this financing option as well. So that'll be one strategy. And there's about, I think there's 12 events lined up in the next month or two to help promote the electrification campaign generally.
There's a monthly Buncombe County newsletter, I don't get it, and I live in Buncombe County.
We can show you how to sign up.
Yeah, you should.
I didn't know there was one, so I guess there's a problem there.
Subscribe. Yeah, so much. Yeah.
It's probably understandable there.
Okay. Any other questions for Michelle?
Well, I guess the only other thing, so just from any legal standpoints and all of that, we're able to pay this fee. How does that work? Because I know we always have to be careful around.
Yeah.
Well, right, and I actually, when I first looked at it, I was a little bit like, uh-oh. But the North Carolina General, I had it pulled up, but I don't. But there is a statute specifically talking about energy programs, and it did not appear to have the normal, the 80% AMI cap or the restriction that you all run into on a lot of programs. So this one seems to be that you were allowed to go up to 150 or set that. So I believe you were good.
Okay,
You will double check that.
Well, I will double and triple check that, but
Thank you.
But from my reading of the statute at this point in time, I do not have any concerns.
Okay, and to complement an existing state program, the cap matches the energy saver program.
Yes.
So,
But there is a statute that specifically separates energy programs from other home improvement and affordable housing programs.
the statutes, you're talking about the statutes that describe what counties can do with their money is essentially what you're. Yeah.
Yes, right.
Those are always fun.
Yes.
And some of them, this is off topic, some of them speak to AMIs, they say the AMI.
Not so much, but they use the term low and moderate income. That's
Yeah.
usually the term that's in a lot of the assistant statutes where the government is doing, you have to have a public purpose for what you're spending your money on. And then your public purpose has to sometimes meet some of the things requires low and moderate income. The state doesn't define it, but typically it's usually 80% of a household's income and under.
And the county participates in another loan loss reserve program, that's the Mountain Community Capital Fund, which is the small business lending program, Mountain Biz Works and self-help. It specializes in loans predominantly below 80%.
Thank you, Michelle.
yes, thank you. Nice to see you.
That's great. Let us know more about the rebate program.
Do you want to see the slides?
Oh, yeah, no, I wanted to shoot up a flare when it goes live, June 1st.
Okay.
You know, we'll advertise it.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you. Andy. Strategic plan.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Andy Zoller. I'm with Strategy Innovations. They finally let me out of EOC for my real job, so I'm excited to be here today. In full disclosure, I'm a pitch hitter. Max is normally comes and presents with you guys, but he's out of town today, so I'm filling in for him in terms of presentation today. So we're here to talk about energy environment in the strategic plan goals, post-Helene update, kind of let you know where we're at and what's going on with that. This is solely an update to really let you see the timeline, see what we've worked on, where we're starting, where we're keeping back up, and to remind you of what the focus area, energy environment, came up with objectives and goals. And I'll tell you about next steps, kind of go over what our plan is and how that's going to make sure I can do this. Okay, there we go. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about where we are now, and what has happened so far. What happens next? First of all, y'all remember this timeline. We started out a year ago in May, really in April, with talking with board commissioners, getting feedback on the survey, getting information for that. Then we really went to work last May, meeting with focus area groups, subject matter experts, and really came up with that whole objectives, goals, the structure of the plan, how it would look. And we spent all of last summer meetings and reviewing with board of commissioners. We spent the retreat in August of 2024 with you guys, talking about goals and what our measures were and what our metrics had come up with. And we were so dead set on making it to November for that final approval of 2030. And as we all know, Mother Nature had a different plan for us. And so everything pretty much in that red area, all those planning activities paused after the impact of Tropical Storm Helene. So we put everything on hold. So almost 8 months later, almost a year later, really, from when we first started, we're picking back up again. And we're picking up with a new timeline, with a new goal of getting this in front of the commissioners in October, which means we have a lot of work. we like to say that we were almost 90% done with this plan. But there's still those small tweaks and things that we need to take into consideration. And we had a major event, right? So all of that kind of plays into what we're working on and making sure that we get a full, well-built strategic 2030 plan. So right now, we're in the month of May, so community engagement and community and employee input meetings and pop-up events are well under their way. So think about your markets, your food markets, your events in Asheville, throughout the community, and someone is there with either the Envision Buncombe or to talk or to present about strategic plan. So it is a very aggressive campaign, I would say, a very successful campaign so far based on the input that we've gotten in terms of reaching back out to the community. Remember, we did the same thing last year, but we held separate events for it. This year, we're going out into the community and actually really going on the ground. So it's a full effort. In June, we get to come before the Board of Commissioners. I believe it's June 17th, present kind of where we're at and give give a feedback on what the community has said, as well as what we've discussed with our subject matter experts. And then May through August, we're doing those focus areas meeting plan. We'll be updating the plan based on the tweaks that we need to make, right? And then August, we'll come back to you with kind of where we're at. September, we'll have a draft plan. And then on October, fingers crossed, no hurricanes, good vibes. We will get this in front of the Board of Commissioners for vote. So it's kind of the timeline right now. Again, pending any natural disasters or Mother Nature, that's our goal. So I'll pause there for y'all to look at that, just so that you can see kind of the overall plan. All right, so now I want to bring us back to a review of the environmental and energy goals that were created by the Energy Environmental Focus Area Group. So I'm going to go through these objectives and goals more of a high level, just kind of let you look at them, understand where we were then, and I'll tell you what kind of next steps are in terms of as you're looking at it, you may be like, well, what about Helene? What about all these things? We're working on those things, and I'll break that out for you in just a few minutes, okay? So our first goal, objective and goal that we had is objective 1 was preserve the agricultural heritage of Buncombe County and prioritize the conservation of natural resources. So in that goal, we had things, in that objective, we had 4 goals total. Each one of those increase economy viability and stability of agriculture by supporting 20 farmers workshops, business planning, and farm estate planning by 2030. And I'm reading these out to you guys. I know y'all can read it, but I want y'all to hear them, because that's what's going to be discussed as we continue to move on through the summer. And we want to make sure that we're meeting those. So solid waste will recycle 20% of all waste generated in Buncombe County. We can see in D by 2030. Restore 10,000 linear feet of steam bank restored by 2030. And Buncombe County will continue with its goal to conserve 20% of the county's total acreage acres by 2030 by initiating conservation of 700 acres per year. So at the time, this objective and these goals all had their metrics and measures, and they were real flushed out and ready to go. And as they stated, they look pretty good right now. There's obviously things that we'll be reviewing with our subject matter experts to see what has changed with the impacts of Helene and all the stuff that we've learned so far. But anyways, just for you guys to review, I'll pause here to see if there's any comments, concerns. How many of you have actually read this? I'm not sure for our new folks, but that's our objectives and goals for that first round.
And then this is where we were as of September 2024, basically.
Yes.
This was what was presented to us at that last meeting where we had discussed it.
That's correct.
Yes, I have to come clean.
Okay.
I thought we were editing this for our new goals. So the original goal was support 50 farmers. And we changed it down to 20, but it was originally 50.
Okay. Thanks for
Yeah, clarity. I thought this was the new goals that we had recommended, and so I made the edit, and now I realized these were the old goals, so.
For
Was originally
clarity, stream bank in all three, that's not river bank, or is, how's that term intended here?
The idea here was that we would concentrate on 2,000 linear feet of true restoration of stream bank, not citing a particular location, whether that be Cane Creek or French Broad, just to say that we would do at least one 2,000 linear feet project a year. That's the goal.
I'm afraid it's gonna be all now used on riverbank, and as I've been trying, in anticipation of this discussion, I've been trying to think of the hydrology here is different than your normal stream bank, because, I mean, a lot of the streams come out of canyons. Guess what? You're not gonna be able to create places for the water to go until they come out of the canyons. And even if you look at the Swananoa River to downtown, it's a canal, but that's sort of the natural feature. That's how that was. So they're very splashy rivers. I mean, we just had a whole some rain that was not that much. It still goes way up in both of those rivers. And so the things that feed into those rivers, if they're coming out of canyons, we're not going to rebuild a canyon. But the streams that go into these, particularly those off of farmland, where we actually have something to do, may be our best opportunity to reduce the flashiness, which won't eliminate a Helene problem, but it will help with the other, the more common problems we have. And if stream is not here, that's why I asked about the definition of stream. Because I worry that there's a lot of the restoration to go into the river banks as opposed to the stream banks. And yeah, there's need to fix the river banks, but I think there's a greater need to fix the upsource from that with the stream banks. That's why I guess I suggest maybe thinking about that.
We generally use the term stream bank as collective for any waterway bank. And it's really important to note here that all of our programs are voluntary. So it is dependent on who is willing to participate in a program and where we can find a funding source. So historically, a great funding source for this type of work is a program called RCPP, and that's an NRCS program. And it's challenging to get people to sign up because your neighbors all have to agree and you need both sides of the bank. So it can be difficult to even get one project done a year. And unfortunately, right now, RCPP isn't funded. So we're hoping that that funding comes back as well. So we know that the need is far higher than 10,000 linear feet in a 5-year period. And we are certainly not holding ourselves to, oh, we've got our 2,000, forget it, we're not doing any more.
No, that's a goal.
We're just trying to say what we think based on funding that we anticipate. And when we wrote this goal, our CPP was still funded. So that was another reason to feel reasonably confident about that number. Given Helene, over the next 5 years, we're hopeful that significant money will come in and allow us to do maybe not full restorations in some of the programs, but certainly stabilization that could greatly improve water quality over time. We kind of are looking at it right now. Baseline is get revegetation, things that Dee Dee's worried about, right? Getting revegetation in the wake of the disaster as a whole. Second level, stabilization, and then third level is restoration. We would love to be able to get there on significant linear footage.
Thank you.
I'm supportive of these goals. I just think forward one should be the first on there. Because like from the the community perspective, what I consistently hear is the conservation, that is the focus. And I get the other, what y'all are trying to do, it's just.
And I don't think those are prioritized,
They're not
it's
ranked.
just,
No.
yeah, but just visually,
Visually,
yeah.
and like what they see first, right?
Okay.
And I certainly made a note of that, so we'll do that. And I'll tell you how a little bit of that's being worked out here in just a minute when we get to the objectives. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So I'm curious on number 2. We've had, maybe we just need to kind of refine some of the definitions here because there's just been so much waste that we've had to clear. Our contractors have been clearing it from roadways and riverways. And I'm curious how that 20% is impacted now because our 20% is a lot larger given the large amount of waste that we've had to haul out.
So we've kept all of that vegetative piece separate. So remember, this was before. So they were looking at what was managed at the landfill and how much of that they would be able to divert.
So
yeah.
even there, I mean, just the amount that has gone
Yeah,
to
there's
landfill
still
recently has increased that.
Yeah, all the vegetative waste is being taken to separate locations and managed and then hauled elsewhere, but you're right, still people are coming to the landfill, so. But it would encompass everything that's in there.
And I'll go ahead and what is C&D again?
Construction and demolition.
Okay. So yeah, a lot of
And
that.
that's, yeah, that's what we talked about at the last meeting, and that we have one more C&D landfill site, and we're getting ready to work on the capital investment to make that happen, because our current one is full. So that's really telling us about that, so.
Okay, so I'm gonna move to the next one, and again, thank you for everybody's input on that conversation. Objective 2 is reduce greenhouse gas emissions, protect air quality. 30% of county vehicles will be zero emission by 2030. Incorporate 2 countywide solar campaigns with current community clean energy programs, resulting in 200 residential solar installations in Buncombe County by 2030. Offset 1,200 tons of organic compost from the landfill by 2030. A little something that we were just talking about. I think that's been fulfilled. 25 electrical vehicle charging ports will be available to public use in county facilities by 2030 and achieve 100% renewable energy for our county operations by 2030. I'll let those sit for just a second. Any questions on that? I'll move on to the next. Our last objective is increase hazard mitigation and disaster preparedness to support climate resilient community. I giggle because here's the goals, and then we got hit with Tropical Storm Elaine. But complete 100% of the provision necessary to become a Class A community by 2030. Increase the number of stream gauges from 12 to 18. That's a 50% increase by 2030. As we know, a lot of our stream gauges are gone, all of them. Develop a conduct of 5 new hazard awareness campaigns targeting areas where risk is high through 2030. Yeah, develop and conduct.
Well, the stream gauges that are now gone, like whose property was that? Do we know?
I think we've got those through grant programs, if I'm
Over years, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
And those gauges are public safety gauges, they're not water quality gauges, they're stream rise, high water gauges to indicate evacuations.
We'll have to I was gonna say, some of those might be state or.
Or USPS.
Yeah, we'd have to confirm on that one, I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
I guess part of my question is like, whose insurance or FEMA?
Yeah, how are we getting them back?
Yeah.
We had an interesting conversation about stream gauges earlier in the week with NCEM, who had paid for the installation and of those at Lake Lore, something like 4 weeks before Helene. And the stream gauges generally remain intact even after the storm. And they gave an example of one of the gauges, the battery eventually died because the siren went off for so long that it eventually just ran. So the point is it worked, right?
Yeah.
And so I think really
How
strong.
much do they cost? approximately gauge?
I can't speak to that.
Are they, I mean, are they terribly expensive things? I mean, setting up the structure for it, but the structure, well, I guess maybe not that.
My understanding last year, we can almost check on this, but it is expensive.
It is an expensive proposition, okay.
Venture.
Can you speak more to the hazard awareness campaigns? I'm interested, kind of what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so the idea, and I think this has been even more illustrated in the last eight months, is developing campaigns to go around to either our marginalized communities, but just throughout the entire county and talk about hazard awareness and really push to speak to, are you aware of, wildfire, for example? Are we picking up brush? Are we taking care of all the extra debris? Well, I'm using now, but back then it wasn't. But right now, for wildfire, are we picking up our debris and are we removing it? Are we getting it out of the way? Where, we just saw all the fires that happened in the last month before we got the rain, it was fast. Those acres lit up really quickly. So campaigns around that scenario where we're going out to the community and letting them know these are some hazard mitigations. These are some things that we need to be doing as a community versus just waiting.
So like around wildfires, landslides, all these various issues.
The conversation around this one wasn't necessarily developing whole new campaigns, but piggybacking on some existing campaigns, some existing programs like Firewise, but really utilizing our CAPE team to get out and do a lot of public awareness around already existing material and a lot of.
What can you do for your
cases.
home?
Yeah.
Where do you access resources? What do you do in the event of?
Get your,
So
take your fire
more than
alarms,
just a
that's
social media campaign.
Oh,
Correct,
Right? Because
correct.
I'm just gonna tell you, that's not reaching
Yeah.
a lot of.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, they were multi-layered campaign outreach.
I know that there's a lot of new fundings demands, but I was gonna bring up wildfire because now, we don't have a lot of endangered areas in the sense of what I'm thinking of what happened in Rutherford and such counties where it's just completely wild. But we do have some, and some of that is not Forest Service, but privately owned. And the notion of a private landowner being able to afford to deal with what's needed there, it seems to me if there's a way we can assist with at least getting, while we have time and don't have fires surrounding us, fire breaks through that debris.
We are working on that currently.
Okay, so so that does not need to be included in this.
So there's the actual wildlife summit that's going to be happening in June.
Yes,
June 28th.
26th.
Yeah, with FEMA and our emergency management folks, and we're gonna have everyone in the room, we're gonna talk about this issue, we're gonna talk about strategies for mitigation, we're gonna talk about funding and how we align those, so yeah, we've identified that.
Okay.
Very high level needs, and thanks for bringing that up, because it's on the mind.
June 26th is Saturday.
26.
I thought it was 26, but we can confirm that.
It's at the Ferguson Auditorium. Yeah, Thursday, June 26th.
And I also think that other counties are coming in, right?
Yes,
Not just-
I think
Not
it's
just Buncombe
regional,
County, but
yes.
it's a regional type event.
And I guess just one other question, and this, Jeremiah, you had talked about the resilience hubs.
Mhm.
And is that, I don't know whether we need to put that in a goal, but maybe we do.
It is definitely on our minds as we
okay.
talk about like how do we adjust these goals post-Elaine?
Yeah.
It is very much on our minds being specific about increasing the resilience of our facilities. It's
I personally would like to see it, so like that we keep it at the forefront and make sure that we are, and showing our community that we are prioritizing that.
I would agree, essentially the slide that you already showed us to kind of incorporate that as a goal. Here.
So it's very much on our minds, I can assure you.
I think we would agree for sure on the need for resiliency, hazard mitigation. What we've we've tried to stay away from candidly in the strategic plan is something that could translate, that reads as like a budget, specific budget line item. And so I think we just need to think about how we frame it. Because building a resiliency hub as a goal would be kind of direct, like a building. And that might be the right answer, but I think we just need to think about how that.
Yeah, our thought process was more around simply a goal around increasing resilience for county facilities, like without getting super specific about like doing this project at this place. I do think that's what the recovery plan is for, right? Because the recovery plan is project specific. And whereas this is aspirational high level goals, sort of our North Star, right? I think that's how we're thinking about this. But to be clear,
A safe place
we're
for
with
people
you.
to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll also say, taking from where Jeremiah just went with that. So I'm gonna talk about next steps, but I wanna emphasize that there are other things happening besides the strategic plan. There's the clean recovery plan, which is more project-based, as well as you have the master parks rec plan going on, and resiliency continues to pop up in all of those. So I think we'll see something coming out of that. Maybe for the strategic plan, it's more of that high-level conversation, and then the project base as we move forward. So
Could you give a 30-second on what's happening with the clean recovery planning?
actually, I'll give it to Jeremiah, since he's sitting right on.
Yeah, so short version, it's exactly what we just described. So we've got a strategic plan that is these sort of broad, overarching goals. The one we tend to use the most is housing, for example, because it's really easy to be specific about, right? We want more affordable housing. Our goal is to have so many units by 2030. Well, the recovery plan says we're going to build a 260 unit complex on Cox Avenue in downtown in Southfield, right? So it takes those like overarching goals and brings them down to a project that helps to address not just a strategic plan initiative, but a recovery-based initiative, right? And so the way we're developing this is to work with our towns and municipalities, right? Get their input on this as well. Each of them will have sort of a section of the plan to talk about their own recovery goals and their own recovery projects. We've got a community survey out right now to help folks sort of think about how to prioritize, what they want to see in recovery. So it could be housing, it could be, infrastructure and roads and bridges, it can be wildfire. We're seeing that pop up a lot, obviously. That's a top of mind issue for a lot of people. And then we sort of take all of these thoughts and concepts and develop. We're also clearly asking our subject matter experts, what projects can we do to make these things happen? Like the community says, wildfire is our priority. Well, we've got subject matter experts that know what wildfire mitigation projects look like and what they need to be, right? So create those projects and then write a plan that delineates, these are our, our long-term recovery projects going forward. So
Thank you.
again, that's the shortest version I can give you, but there's a lot to it. We'll hope to have something by a draft plan ready by September.
I have one more question that I forgot. I have to do this for DD, that's right. So we talked about stream banks, but also stormwater runoff. And that is such a key thing that impacts us continually. And so I'm just curious, any thoughts around that, whether it was adding a specific goal or that being part of that those hazard plans, there's wildfires, landslides, the stormwater runoff could potentially fall in that.
When we were talking about the strategic plan prior, we hadn't exactly addressed floodplain as a goal, although it's certainly present in a lot of the other goals, but I think it's a good point. And some of the stormwater, I think, will be addressed in the goal to get to level 8 in the
That's
floodplain, our insurance, our flood insurance, getting there. That's part of that.
CLS situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you've taken the Envision survey already, you'll see that there are 2 priorities that speak to floodplain management specifically, but
That's kind of where that showed up the
Okay,
most.
so I'll just put it out there though, that is certainly something we need to be looking at, because it contributes.
Yeah.
To ongoing challenges.
And it's getting more frequent.
Yes.
So I wanna quickly, plug, if you haven't taken that survey, please do.
I've taken it 10 times.
Excellent.
It's not the same as group voting,
So let me just real quickly address kind of the next steps and tell you kind of what the work is going on right now. So we did an internal survey with our department directors that was done in April, end of April. We're in the middle of our community engagement right now. But May and June is our subject matter expert goal updates. So this is kind of where I wanted to focus in a little bit as y'all were talking to me. That what is happening is we're going back to the subject matter experts and saying, all right, here's the 20, our goals that we came up with. Post-Helene, where do we land? Are these metrics correct? Are these measures correct? Is this goal correct? We're not going for a complete rewrite, but we are going for, hey, we might need to update some of this information to reflect. The reason we're not doing a full rewrite is because there's a Helene recovery plan. And to Jeremiah's point, that's where the project, that's where the real stuff starts hitting the ground, and it all kind of leads up to the strategic plan on up to comp plan. So we're doing that right now. We're very active in doing that for strategy innovations. We're meeting with those subject matter experts. We're asking those questions. They're giving us feedback. When we come to the Board of Commissioners in June, we'll show what we found and what those updates, look like, if any, or if a lot. And then we'll continue on with our board engagement through surveys and meetings, just like we did last summer, June through September. We'll do our updates, administrative review through June through August. And then again, fingers crossed, we'll have the plan adoption in October of 2025. That being said, we'd be more than happy once we get kind of through the summer months and kind of work out everything to bring back to this subcommittee what we found, bring updates if you'd like, as we make that progress.
Just to add on to what Amy's saying, the real work for this group happens after October, because once we have these strategic plan adopted, the goal of this group as an advisory board is to say, how do we get there? So that's where you guys, that's the lift for you all. So just want to share that. And
That's super helpful.
Yeah. And then just mention too, kind of what I heard from this group is there may be a tweak or an addition, like Tim mentioned, of a high level kind of community safety goal that we would add. So, and wildfires and resiliency hubs would be addressed in the recovery plan, but they would fit within that. So that's my takeaway from this group. So, all right.
This is your last slide. It is. One question I have, I'm gonna forget this, I'm sure, but there's a lot of overlapping policy arenas when it comes to streams and rivers, flooding and stormwater, right? So there's different words we use sometimes for the same thing. When it comes to flood mitigation, so not like even flood regulation, but mitigation in the physical sense of the term, infrastructure. What plan bucket or strategy bucket does that kind of thing fall in?
There's a there's 5, 6 buckets, and we have a planning and development as one of them. And so in my mind, water quantity goes there. So, but I agree, there's overlap.
Yeah.
But that's where it fits in my mind.
And that sits in what plan?
That's,
Comp plan.
well, it's addressed in the comp plan, the flood insurance ratings, that's addressed in the comp plan. But then I'm not sure, the strategic plan, there's also the development route too. And I don't know if there may be updates to that, or I have proposals in there that address water quantity as well.
There will also likely be an update to the hazard mitigation plan through this process as well. Because that one, while it's not that old, yeah, like everything else, we have to revisit, what it looked like before and what it should look like. So that's actually one of the projects, one that we're looking at as part of the long-term recovery plan is like an update of some of these plans, right? Because that's gonna be necessary.
And then those guys currently working on a brick grant to around further information on hazard mitigation for us.
If I could make a suggestion, is that when this is done, not quite done, but pretty well, 95% there, is that someone develops a crosswalk to these Helene type issues that we've all been asking here. And so that people can see, as an addendum to the strategic plan, this is addressed in these goals here, as well as also in our other plans that we have here, so that they can pull that together. You got that already on your to-do list.
Yes. We have a wheel.
Yeah.
The comprehensive plan is the cog in the center of the wheel, and all the other plans radiate out from it in a beautiful pizza chart.
Yeah, as soon as you said that, I was looking right at the pie.
That's nice too, but I do think that more of this issue and then underneath it. some
Yeah, and I
goals.
think that's why the wheel is so helpful with the comprehensive plan being the longest running in the center. You can see the thread as it pulls through the strategic plan, out to the hazard mitigation plan, through the parks master plan, out to the greenways plan.
But it doesn't
And
have
you can-
text, so that's what I'm saying,
Yeah,
supporting
so
text.
having that as the anchor and then the text below it
Okay.
to support
There you go.
the visual anchor to show that it's not just a stack of plans, but they really are
Yeah.
integrated.
Are you also asking that we take our recovery plan and list the projects in the recovery plan under these goals, so we see?
I think he's asking to reference
That's what I
where other
thought.
things exist.
That's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah.
So that anyone, not just us, but anyone picking up this strategic plan, who's been, think of this person that's want to know, says, well, what are you doing now for me? Can pick up and, whether it gets down to individual projects or not, it shows that we really have these things. And this is where we're thinking of it. And actually, the fact that it's in 6 buckets, as long as we can also communicate that, yes, we're coordinating across the 6 buckets.
Yeah.
I think that will help people say that it's not hidden in some goal here. That this is really being addressed. Exactly how that is and at what level you get to is, I wouldn't say,
And I think, one thing, it's a lot easier with capital projects to get that visual because we have a CIP and we have a grid and it shows all the capital projects and kind of look and see, but I think it's harder with policy related projects to get that visual, so I think that's a really good recommendation.
Yeah, I agree. I think your point is well taken, so that the community really understands that we are well aware of what's happened and that is being integrated and how we communicate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. We talked about all those goals in September, like 2 weeks before Helene. I don't remember that at all. Like at a special commissioner,
I don't think you were there.
I remember.
That's why you don't remember.
I wasn't here. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes me feel a little better. I know I'm being erased my memory. So the last topic, I think Sybil helped answer a lot of this in my head, but already, the thing you just said.
Okay.
I guess, first of all, my question to staff is what do you want to hear from us? And I think the first thing I know you want us to talk about is the meeting schedule. Last time we talked about meeting quarterly. Certainly that seems like what we should do, at least until after the fall. So my question back to the committee is meeting quarterly for a while sound okay? Let's hold that off to the side. And then in terms of discussion topics, I think we saw with our, they just went through a lot of things for us to chew on for years, right? Which is good. And just strengthens the reason this committee exists at all. And so is there anything else that you wish this committee chew on or think about or work on or even just have presented to us from an outside group or anything a couple of years into the future. I've heard from some of you,
I guess at some point, acknowledging that there's gonna be tremendous cuts in student level funding and in regulations, how is that gonna impact us and how does that impact our thinking? And I know we don't have that answer yet, but in terms of a topic for the future, we need to hear that.
Yeah.
That seems to be, it's going to happen.
If you think it's appropriate, I don't know, maybe, I'm sure you're doing this in other arenas, but I would love to see like a subject matter expert that really understands landslides, right? They've been back here and have a really good understanding so that we're aware of that, because I think it will inform some of the things that the work that we do on this committee. And so having that understanding would be extremely helpful.
The governor's Western Partnership for Resiliency, they actually had someone present this week on landslides. And it was, how do I say, terrifying. So that may be where we could tap into that expert because they've obviously done a lot of thought. And I know our planning and our permit department has a lot of background in that as well.
That would be very helpful.
So what's the process for selecting an expert? I mean, how do you, yeah, like with the farmland stuff, like how do you say this is the top expert that we should definitely follow the recommendation? And then what's like a vetting process for it?
Well, with landslides, it has partially been the state's recommendation, how we can pull together. We started with the National Geologic Survey, and then we went to North Carolina Geologic Survey, and they pointed us and they kept kind of directing us, and then the state came together to say, okay, we understand, we need to support this, and along with FEMA's help and everybody else kind of brought some experts to us. So that's how landslides kind of came together. Agriculture is a really interesting one because there's certainly no one way to farm and certainly no one way to think about ag. I think it just depends on the particular topic that we want to tackle, if it's farmland preservation versus best management practice to reduce runoff for water quality issues or something. We would do our work to find out who's leading on a topic, but I would encourage us, if we want that, to hone our topic down so we can get the best qualified person. One of the things that in landslides that we talk about a lot is somebody that understands the soils in Western North Carolina. So we really want people that don't just understand shifts, but understand the actual types of soils that we have. The same with agriculture.
And on that front, in the same way with wildfire prevention, we're pushing towards a summit, meeting of the minds, or that's the current proposal as well with landslides, to kind of bring together those that have the most knowledge of the topic. And candidly, Commissioner Paul, you probably heard this, there's not a playbook for Western North Carolina landslide remediation. And so it's a new topic that we're kind of working together.
Yeah, the overlay that they put on that map for landslide possibility is like most of the region. It's hard to dig into how you mitigate when it's so specific to what storm comes through and how rain hits and
the rest is floodplain.
Yeah.
We've got a meeting scheduled. Yeah.
These are like the third Fridays, but we typically meet Monday.
So you're proposing the quarterly one to the June, September, December?
This was kind of originally proposed in March, and then we cancel April and kept May, so
So quarterly would be, if we met in August, then, and then, again, that, anything we do before the strategic plan, it's kind of hard to do work because we need those goals to do the work. So just know that, so consider that if you want to meet in August. But then if we did meet in August or the next quarterly meeting would be November, which is good timing because hopefully the strategic plan will be adopted. And then we can start talking about those goals. So what are your thoughts on whether you want to start quarterly and have the next meeting in August or you want to wait till November?
Was there anything to bring back to us in August around the goals? Or
Potentially, depends on when you meet, and
Third.
I don't know when the
Some
third, yeah.
updates by then,
There should,
maybe.
there should be some, yeah.
Yeah.
It really just depends on the time.
And I mean, you expressed interest in hearing about federal funding impacts. I mean, if there was something that we could share concretely with you, we could do it then.
you could do a tentative for August,
Yeah.
right? And see if we have something that substantive to actually do,
Yeah.
right?
Let's do that.
That's good.
And that is the third.
Third Friday.
No, of course, it's not that.
August 15th.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
That's it.
Everybody good?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
I